All right, so we're back now for another segment of Let's Ask AI and let's learn something new through AI. And today I decided to ask a question about milk drinks. I think milk drinks is sort of the coffee beverage for anyone who's starting in coffee, or really even for people who are using espresso machines at home. Most people are drinking lattes and different milk drinks. And everyone who starts in coffee really starts with coffee and milk. I think even when I was a kid, I used to drink coffee with milk first and a lot of sugar, and then it eventually evolved into black coffee. So I decided to ask AI what is the perfect, or what is the ultimate espresso and milk drink? And it came out with quite a interesting result for us today. So it says that according to coffee purists and baristas who work at bars, the ultimate coffee and milk drink in reality is flat white. The reason why it says that is that like normally a 12-ounce latte is a little bit unbalanced because there's too much milk into coffee ratio. And then normally a traditional cappuccino is overly airy, especially because you add a lot of air into the steaming of the milk. So the texture is not quite right, doesn't really mix well with coffee and milk, which is why it says that flat white is the perfect and most intense flavor espresso forward drink, and then has a richer and silkier texture. So let's try to figure out how to make this flat white according to what AI is telling us. It's basically a double ristretto, so a double espresso base, but ristretto meaning it's a more intensified, shorter extracted espresso drink. And then we're gonna do a microfoam. So we're not gonna add so much air into the milk. We're gonna make sure we add a little bit of texture and then really texturize the milk properly. And then it says the ideal ratio is the 5 to 6 ounce cup. So we're gonna be using these beautiful Avermex cups for our flat white today. And then it goes ahead giving us a little bit of introduction into different coffee drinks and their recipes and what you should be looking for, which is quite interesting in terms of how much coffee you're using and what should be the proper texture of milk. And it says the secret variable really in reality is the milk temperature, which I totally agree. Milk temperature is sort of a huge variable in terms of balance, flavor, and how you can really incorporate milk and bring sweetness into the coffee drink. If you go too high of a temperature, it tends to become bitter. You're already over caramelizing and sort of burning the ingredients inside the milk. And then if you go too low, obviously it just becomes too milky, too milk forward. So we're gonna try out a classic flat white. And then I'm gonna give you guys my take on what I think brings really the ultimate coffee, espresso, and milk drink. So we're gonna start first with our espresso. In reality, it's a double ristretto. We're gonna be extracting a shorter double espresso shot. The recipe today is gonna be 18 grams of espresso, and then we're gonna do a ristretto. So I'm gonna be extracting a little shorter shot. A double ristretto here will be 18 grams to 28 grams of beverage out, which is normally a half portion of a double espresso. So 28, this should be enough concentrated espresso into our flat white today. And then I'm gonna be using just traditional full fat milk, about 4%, 3 to 4% fat, which is what normally cafes use. And we're gonna be steaming the milk into a range of 55 to 60 degrees. Normally I tend to use about 160 mLs of milk to steam. Make sure there's enough milk and milk at a cold temperature. Quickly purge. And then we're gonna start steaming. And I'm gonna try here to add not much air at the beginning. Just a little to create a silkier texture. And I'm gonna try to incorporate all the air bubbles into the steaming. Normally 55 degrees for me, it's almost to the point where you're starting to feel like you cannot hold the pitcher anymore because of the heat. This should be enough. And we're gonna create our traditional flat white here. So ideally, always start first by mixing espresso and milk before you start stacking your latte art. So traditional 5 to 6 ounce flat white for you guys to try. Normally using full fat milk at a lower temperature like this brings a little bit more sweetness. We're gonna try to see if it's a more balanced coffee and milk drink. Yeah, I definitely agree. There's really nice texture from flat white. It's a little bit more silkier. There's not heavy foam into it. It incorporates pretty well with the coffee. I can definitely taste a little bit more intensity of the espresso in this drink. But my real take, and obviously involved with coffee competitions, the reality is that the definition of a traditional or a very high quality milk drink with espresso in reality is the harmonious balance of coffee and milk, but it has to be a sweet drink. You have to feel the natural sweetness of milk. So there are today many different techniques, something that you can definitely try at home, which is a technique called freeze distillation. So basically, it's a technique that you concentrate the milk and you remove the water content out of it. And the way you really do it is you can either freeze or use different equipment, but the easiest way is for you to freeze the milk in your freezer for 12 hours at least, so overnight. And then on the next day, you're gonna open up the cap and let it slowly melt. So the idea is that the melting point of fat, sugar, and proteins in the milk is much lower compared to the water itself. So you're gonna have all the fats and the concentrated milk fall into the pitcher while remaining with the ice block, which will be the water. And I've already pre-prepared this. We have here 2 types of milk as well, which is something that the prompt doesn't really go in depth into, which is choosing the right type of milk as well really will affect how you have a better balance of sweetness, a better balance of espresso flavors into your milk drink. So I've freeze distilled regular full fat milk and my personal favorite, which is zero lactose milk. So zero lactose milk is very unique in terms of sweetness perception, especially because lactose is considered to be a complex sugar. So regular milk, full fat milk normally has really a lot of lactose content. So this is a sort of a complex sugar, so it's really hard for you to perceive sweetness in the milk. So when you use zero lactose milk, normally you're gonna have broken down compounds of sugar, which is easier for you to perceive sweetness into the milk. It doesn't mean that it has more sugar or more sugar content overall. It just means that you can perceive sweetness easier for this type of milk. So we're gonna use both freeze distilled milks, and I'm gonna tell you which one is sweeter and which one I prefer the best. We're gonna go back to about 160 mLs of milk. But here I'm gonna give you guys another tip. When using freeze distilled milk, it tends to be sometimes too sweet or too concentrated or even too thick. So the way you can balance this beverage out when you're steaming milk at home is by sort of dialing back into the freeze distillation. So my suggestion is always starting with sort of a 50% ratio. You can see that this milk is a lot thicker because it's more concentrated. So if you're gonna use 160 mLs of milk, my suggestion is to go with 80 mLs of freeze distilled milk and dial back down with your traditional regular whole milk, 160. And this should create a little bit more balanced milk flavor and sweetness into your coffee drink. If you use fully freeze distilled milk, normally it will even taste salty because of the amount of components, amount of protein, and even salt as well and minerals into your milk. So we're gonna steam the same way, less texture. And then the great thing about freeze distilled milk is that it's actually even easier to steam. You can have more time to steam, especially because there's more fat content and creates a better texture when making your milk drink. We're gonna mix in, stack, and then we're gonna quickly make with zero lactose milk to taste compare. Okay, double ristretto. And then we're gonna do the same thing, 50% blend of zero lactose milk, a little bit of regular zero lactose milk as well. Also, depending on the type of milk that you use or how it's processed, it will also create different types of sweetness. I normally tend to use UHT milk, so it's like fully pasteurized and caramelized. This also increases the sweetness level of the milk normally. We're gonna steam the same way, a little bit less texture. And pour the same way for all the milk drinks. And we're gonna try both of them. So I'm gonna start first with the full fat regular milk. It's definitely a lot more sweeter, more texture. It tastes more like a salted caramel dessert. And I think this is still because of the freeze distilled milk. It's a lot more concentrated. And then together with the roasted flavors of coffee, and the complexity of the coffee gives sort of like this caramelized taste. And then with the zero lactose, which is definitely much sweeter. For me, this is sort of like a sweet cheesecake, sweet tart, very dessert-like flavors. Which is why it's one of my favorite milks to always use when making espresso drinks. So yeah, I think this, in my opinion, in reality is the ultimate espresso and milk drink. I definitely agree that flat whites increase and create more balance of coffee flavor and milk. But then I think there's a whole universe of what you can do with milk to really up your game of espresso and milk at home. So I hope you guys try out, and let me know if you guys have any more prompts for us to try with AI.